So how dry do you want it? Thankfully, this is only a question I ask myself when I want to play Euro games, and these are some of my favorites. Now first up we have Brass Birmingham. Now this is designed by Matt Tolman, Martin Wallace, and Gavin Brown, published by Roxley Games, and this behemoth is just about as dry as you can possibly get in a board game theme. So this takes place during the Industrial Revolution, and players are trying to create the best network across the map. You're going to be doing that by connecting cities with either canals or railways, depending on which era you're in the game. And then you're also going to be building a variety of buildings like coal mines, like ironworks, breweries, pottery mills, and so on. There's a lot of different buildings you can build, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins in traditional Euro fashion, right? But the reason I think this game is so good, besides being super tight, super strategic, is that the positive player interaction is so good. At least I like it a lot. So anytime someone builds a coal mine or an ironwork or a brewery, you're gonna put that respective resource on that building. Well, the next time someone needs one of those resources, they're actually able to take it from anywhere on the map as long as it's connected to a network besides iron. And that kind of sounds like it sucks at first, right? Like I put a coal mine down and someone steals my coal. That sucks, right? Well, anytime the last resource is picked up from that building or that type of structure, you flip the tile and that is going to gain you both income as well as victory points at the end of the round. And I think that's awesome. So despite it can sometimes get in the way of your plans, like if someone takes my resource, it's still helping me out in the end because I'm going to be getting more money, I'm going to be getting more victory points, and I just love that. I feel like you don't see that type of unique player interaction too often. There's another game on this list that has something similar to that, but overall, I think Brass Birmingham has definitely earned its #1 spot on BGG. I think it's so good, and if you've played it, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Next up, we have Great Western Trail 2nd edition, designed by Alexander Pfister, published by Egertspiel, I don't know how to pronounce that. But in this game, you are trying to be the best rancher, the best cowboy in all of Kansas. And how the game will work is you're going to be doing things like buying cows and adding them into your deck, which will then net you more money at the end of the round once you sell to Kansas. You can also hire workers to help you do things like build more buildings, reduce the cost of cattle, as well as move your train further along the train track. Now, this is the game that made me question everything I knew about board games, and that is to not judge a book by its cover. I have no interest in being a cowboy, but this game has changed my mind completely, and I fell in love with this game very early on. I actually went on kind of a lull of not playing this for a few months and played it again like a week and a half ago, and it just shot up even higher on my board game list, and I love it. I love it so much. I think it is very tight and very strategic, but I never felt like it was too restrictive that I wasn't enjoying it, and there's always ways to mitigate the kind of curveballs that are thrown in front of you. So one way the game works is that anytime someone builds a building across the map, that is going to kind of use up one of your movement spaces if you cross it. So you have to try to strategize where you're going to build buildings or which route you're going to take on the map to have the best turn, essentially. And it's all about that. It's all about min-maxing your turn, trying to focus on a strategy, whether it be focusing on buying a ton of cattle to net you points at the end of the game or build a ton of buildings. I think the last strategy I used the engineer strategy, where I just hired a bunch of engineers and I sent my train all along these different stops, and I was getting a ton of victory points. I didn't end up winning, I got second place, but the person who got first actually had like the same strategy as me. And all in all, I love this game. This game is definitely what turned me on to Euros in general, and it really opened the door for me to explore all the ones that are on this list. All right, next up we have Kanban EV, designed by Vital Lacerda, published by Eagle Griffin Games, and I actually bought this game for the memes. I know my girlfriend wanted something really heavy and crunchy, and I've heard of Lacerda games, but I had never played one, so I showed her this and we thought it was hilarious. Ended up buying it, and I was blown away by how freaking good this game is. In this game, you're going to be taking on the role of a plant manager, essentially, in a car factory, and you are trying to build a car from start to finish. You're going to be doing things like getting blueprints, you'll have to go collect the car parts, you'll have to manufacture the car, go test it on the track. You even have to take training, which is hilarious. And there's even a point in the game where you have to go in front of your boss and talk to her about what you've achieved and why you deserve praise. And speaking of your boss, there is Sandra, who is your manager, and she's going to be going across the different departments and making sure your certifications are up to date. And if they're not, you get penalized for it. All in all, I think this game's hilarious. But the cool thing is that Lacerda has done an amazing job at translating and incorporating this theme into the game to where it makes perfect sense. I mean, this is a heavy game. This is no joke. But for how much is going on and for how busy the board is and how much there is in front of you, it's really not that hard. I mean, I feel like it all makes sense, right? You have to go get the blueprints. Okay, I need car parts. Let's go get the car parts. Let's go put the car together. Let's go test it. It all makes sense. And for that reason, I think this game's so good. If you've never played a Lacerda game, I think this is definitely one you should try, especially if you're on the fence. I think it's kind of I don't want to say a gateway, because I don't think there is a gateway into Lacerda games. It's just next level regardless of your experience. But I've heard, compared to other games especially, this is a really good starter one to play. Next up, we have one of my favorite games of all time. This is A Feast for Odin, designed by Uwe Rosenberg himself. And in my opinion, this is Uwe Rosenberg's like holy grail title. I freaking love this game. In this game, you'll be taking control of a Viking clan, and you're trying to be the wealthiest Viking clan, I guess, kind of in traditional Euro fashion. You're trying to get the most points. But there are so many paths to victory in this game, and that's why I freaking love it. You can focus on building ships and exploring new islands. You can pillage and try to get new loot from other places. You can focus on farming. What else? That you can do hunting and whaling. I mean, there are so many things. There's over 60 worker placement spots on this player board, which is crazy. And another reason I really enjoy this is the polyomino aspect. So anytime you get loot or different tiles, you have to place them on your player board, and there are some restrictions, but it makes for a really fun polyomino puzzle, and I love it. This is a game that I continue to enjoy, and I don't foresee that changing for a very, very long time. I think for a Euro especially, the theme is awesome. I've heard some people don't really think the theme shines through, but I do. I personally think it shines through perfectly, and it makes sense. Everything I'm doing makes sense. It never feels like it doesn't, and so for those reasons, I love it. If you've never played this and you've played other Uwe titles, I highly encourage you to play this game. And if you have, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to chat about it. Now finally, I couldn't make this list without including my #1 game of all time, and this is Ark Nova, designed by Matthias Vigge. And in this game, you're trying to make the best zoo, and you'll be focusing on things like the appeal of your zoo or how popular it is. You have conservation points by performing different objectives. You also have to work on reputation with, sister schools or universities, as well as different zoos across the globe. And I love this game for so many reasons, but the biggest one is how many mechanisms there are in this game that come together to make something so awesome. Now, one of the mechanisms is the action selection part of it, which is kind of the main one you're going to be doing. So you have 5 different cards, and they're going to be ordered from 1 through 5, and depending on where they are in order, that will determine the strength of that card. So let's say I have the build card. If it's on the number 3, that means I'm able to build 3 spaces worth of enclosures on my map. And as it moves up, if it was on 5, for example, then I could build up to 5 spaces worth of enclosures. So once you use that ability or that action, you have to take the card, put it down into the 1 spot, which makes it weaker, and then everything else shifts to the right, which means all the other actions get stronger. So it makes for this really fun puzzle, and I love it. I think that's so cool. But on top of that, you also have things like tile placement with the enclosures. I don't know if I'd say polyomino, but you do have to really strategize where you're putting them down, because you can kind of block yourself out sometimes. So I really like that aspect about it as well. You have worker placement. Every time you go to the conservation board, you kind of have to plan a little bit. Anytime you go to the same spot, you have to use 2 workers instead of 1. So I like that aspect about it as well. And then on top of all that, you have a giant tableau. It's not as crazy as games like Terraforming Mars. It's, in my opinion, a little easier in Ark Nova with the tableau specifically. And you're going to have animal cards. They have tags, and those are going to be specific prerequisites or requirements for other cards. And I don't know, it comes together and just makes something so awesome, so unique, at least for me. And as far as Euros go, this is by far like my number one. I love all the other games on this list, but yeah, Ark Nova has my heart. I love it so much. What about you though? Have you played this? What do you think about it? If you hate it, let me know in the comments below. I would love to chat about what you guys think. And those are my favorite Euro games right now. Who knows what other Euro games are going to come out the woodwork and out-dry all of these, but for now, these are my top games. What about you though? What Euro games do you like? Let me know in the comments below. This is Jordan here at Totally Bored. We'll see y'all next time.